Good afternoon, and thank you for tuning in to Politics and the Pulpit here on your hometown station. This is your holy host back for another hour to view the world through the unfiltered lens of God's holy word. If you look over my left shoulder, you'll see it is Christmas already here at the KHTS studios. Yes, we skipped Thanksgiving completely. At the bottom of the hour, we'll be joined by Deborah Pauly with the Lex Rex Institute, and we'll be discussing a Michigan case against former President Trump that was thrown out of the court yesterday, and this might bode well for some future court cases as well, like in Colorado and I believe Minnesota. But more on that at the bottom of the hour with Deborah Pauly. Well, it is raining in Southern California. It's not the promised river that they were promising maybe a little over a week ago, but we definitely are getting some light rain outside. And so it's a nice change of pace. It's the fall. It's a little over a week before Thanksgiving. So it kind of puts that little chill in the air, especially here in Main Street, where we've got the Christmas decorations rocking on the street as well. And it makes it feel like the holidays are definitely upon us. Well, tonight at 7 p.m., right here in our beloved Santa Clarita Valley, at 5:30 for the real serious folks, by the way, we'll be heading over to the Hart High Auditorium for the opportunity to push our school policy in a much more kid/parent-friendly direction. Now, why is it in the Hart Auditorium and not at the normal Hart District meeting location? Because both sides of this argument are engaged, and at least one side is enraged. I would encourage you, if you are a parent who does not want the state to stand between you and your children, then I would encourage you highly to show up tonight. If you are somebody who wants to speak, then I would encourage you to show up early. I understand they're just going to be handing out some numbers, and they're going to be calling numbers at random. I don't think they're going to be going in order as they did a couple of weeks ago. So I think the format has changed. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's what they're going to do. So again, if you want to speak, show up early. And if you might just entertain my thoughts for just a moment here, my humble and very clear instructions for those who are speaking tonight is 4 points. Number one, be clear. Number two, be on point. Don't ramble about other issues. Talk about the main objective. Number three, be respectful. There's no need to call out a board member, call out anybody in the crowd, call out anything. Just be respectful. And fourthly, be brief. I know that the agenda usually gives people 2 minutes to speak. But sometimes you really don't need an entire 2 minutes. Plus, if there's dozens upon dozens upon dozens of people that want to speak, I think it would be fair to just state your position, be clear, be pointed, be brief, and get your agenda out there as quickly and succinctly as possible. So not only do we need people present, which I would encourage folks to come out in mass numbers, but we need people speaking to the issue. So it's great to have the numbers. I'm not gonna take away from that. It's important to have the numbers, but I think it's also important to make sure there's an equal amount or a balance between bodies and people speaking to the issue. If you are going to come tonight, then please, again, plan on speaking. And again, you can be very brief about what you want to say. Now, if you were at the Hart School Board meeting 2 weeks ago, you will have noticed quite a contrast between the groups. Not only because you can judge a book by its cover, which some people would like to say, well, you can't really judge a book by its cover. Well, actually, you can. If it says Playboy, I'm pretty sure you know what its contents is, but also in their anger and complete and utter disdain for the other side. You say, you mean to tell me that the other side showed anger and disdain for the other side? I think so. I think so. There were two sides clearly in that room, and not only just two sides politically and two sides practically, but they were on two different sides in terms of planets. And it was very clear and on full display. One parent came up and said, "Hey, listen, although I disagree with some of the parents in this room, I think we're all good parents." And somebody from the other side, in under their voice, said, "Not you guys." And that's unfortunate that something like this has to degenerate into that kind of a situation where one side thinks the other side are bad parents, whereas the other side thinks that both sides happen to have good parents, but just disagree on this policy of keeping secrets between the school, the state, and parents. Now, I would like to posit this question for us this afternoon for the first half hour of the show. And the question is this: why is much of the political and social left so wimpy, weak, and woke? Why is much of the political, social left so wimpy, weak, and woke? Now, notice I said, why is much of the left? I didn't say why is all, because not all of them are. But much of them tend to be very wimpy, tend to be very weak, especially when it comes to their arguments. And of course, they're just proud of being woke. And of course, nobody knew what that meant 5 years ago. Why is it that much of the left is just simply unable to have a good, honest, healthy debate without them wanting to fillet and roast the opposite side? Now, I can be honest with you. When I walked into the Hart School Board a couple of Wednesdays ago, my idea was just to simply put out what I believed, and Lord willing, it would change hearts on the school board. I didn't realize that I was coming into a full-fledged, we want to fillet you kind of thing, especially the comments that were said about me and my family and others as folks were walking out. And of course, we didn't respond in kind. But some folks were, saying, "Oh, there's that cult leader." And of course, what can I say? I guess me and Andrew here, the board op, is going to go on an island afterwards and have some Kool-Aid, right? But no, I didn't respond in kind because there was really no need to respond in kind. Plus, I have my kids there, and I definitely don't want my kids to see that I have to respond. Does anybody hear that? Can anybody hear that, Andrew? If you can hear that in the radio, that's because we have somebody on the outside of the studio putting up what, Andrew? What are they putting up? They're putting up a banner? Oh, man. What a perfect time for them to do that for Pastor Cook's Politics in the Pulpit moment. Well, let's try to do our best to get back to the topic here and try to answer this question this afternoon. Why is much of the political and social left so wimpy, weak, and woke? Why is it that much of the left is just simply unable to have a good, honest, healthy debate without them wanting, again, to fillet and roast the opposing side? Let me give you a scripture verse real quickly. Isaiah chapter 1, verse 18 states this: "Come, let us reason together, saith the Lord." Folks, if you have good reasons for your argument, then you will be cool, you will be calm, you'll be collected. Now, you'll be passionate, you'll be persistent, but what I observed a couple of weeks ago, and most likely I'm going to observe the same stuff tonight, are people that have to strong-arm their arguments based upon emotion and not facts. If you come tonight with a genuinely neutral point of view, and I'm not suggesting that anybody's going to be doing that, but if you did happen to come tonight with a genuinely neutral point of view, that you're not slanted either way, you would have to conclude that one side is completely unhinged and devoid of real facts. And this is the same side that preaches, very evangelistically, I might add, the gospel of tolerance. But tolerance, at least for this crowd, only goes one way. Now, somebody put this on Facebook the other day, and I stole it, but tolerance is defined as this, and it's a pretty easy definition. Tolerance is defined as expressing an opinion that is opposite of your own and still able to walk away amicably from that individual. Now, that's the way I would define tolerance. I've got plenty of people that I know that are within my sphere of influence who do not see things my way, not just politically, but in other areas of life. And we're able to have a civil conversation. We're able to, split a hamburger, and we're able to walk away amicably and still have a relationship. Now, I want you to listen to this rough cut that we've got here. It's a 3-minute clip. We're not going to play the entire 3-minute clip, but I want you to just listen to a little of what we're up against when it comes to the current culture. Listen to this.
Holy shit, you guys! I'm driving in a car, but I just got a notification that Ruth Bader Ginsburg died! Could this year get any worse? Ruth, you just had to make it to 2021! Off to people that are pro-life! I hate you! Why can't women have abortions? I just saw a pro-life sign driving down the road having a mental breakdown. And I was trying to say, all you people are you're so stupid.
I get it. I don't like the two-party system. I think our country's corrupt. And quite frankly, I don't want to vote for Biden. It feels like voting for a Republican. But I'm gonna do it. You want to know why?
Why?
Because the alternative is a fascist. A fascist is a fascist. Maybe we can have the conversation about dismantling the two-party system when a fascist isn't running. Maybe we can do that later, kiddo.
Here's another. There's another 2 minutes of that one, and it just gets even more acerbic, and we have to continue to listen to all the little beeps there, and it gets kind of obnoxious. But here's a smaller 50-second clip of Charlie Kirk from Turning Point, who's attempting to have a rational conversation with a college student somewhere in the great United States of America. And here you go.
What do you have to say about the 25,000 plus list of people that regret their transition, that wish they could go back and not do it when they were 14? Does that trouble you?
I mean, not really. I mean, a lot of people regret different things.
Well,
I mean, people
but then
regret
shouldn't they
tattoos,
just wait till, I don't know, they're 18 or 19 to chop their parts off, not when they're 14?
A lot of numbers of the people you are talking about did wait to that age. Again, you're picking like...
Well, that makes it even worse.
Yeah?
That makes it, should it be illegal until you're like 25?
What?
Do I think the state should protect children? Yes.
No. Then
No?
you're not talking about children at that point. You're talking
Well,
about...
no, hold on. But the focus is children. Do I think the state has a responsibility to protect 14-year-olds against companies that stand to make billions of dollars chopping kids' parts off?
A lot of this...
Yeah. At least say, wait till you're 18.
I disagree. I believe that in instances where not getting that surgery could lead to suicide or
Okay. So let's ask, this is a provocative question. Do you think they might have other mental health issues besides gender dysphoria?
Oh, yeah, a lot of people.
Okay, why don't we address those first?
There you have Charlie Kirk trying to rationalize with a college student whose parents are probably paying hundreds of $1,000s for him to get a 2 or 4 year education, and will probably go into debt and be flipping hamburgers, making $17.50 an hour at McDonald's. But let me just make this personal. I attempted this last week to reach out to one of the most vocal proponents of the state keeping secrets between parents and children for an opportunity to sit down and discuss our differences. And this person was present at the Heart meeting a couple of weeks ago, and I'm sure will be present tonight. I even encouraged this person to come on this show today in order to have that conversation that I encouraged privately. I encouraged her or him to come on the show today and discuss it openly. But here is the text I received back at those overtures of mine. It says, quote, "For the last time, Mr. Cook, I will not be on your show. I ask that you cease and desist in using my name to get viewers or listing me as a guest when you know that your intent is to harass and belittle me. If you continue to contact me, I will have my attorney draft a cease and desist order for you and your appearances on KHTS. Thankfully, we have a lawyer coming on here in about 5 or 6 minutes, and I'll kind of posit this statement to her and see how much of this actually has legal teeth. But obviously, this doesn't sound like someone who wants to have an honest and open conversation, does it? I mean, I would read my text to you right now over the air, and there was nothing untoward, nothing belittling. I even encourage this person to find where in the last year and a half I have said anything belittling or harassing, or have encouraged others to do the same thing. And this person sent me a show, and I listened to it, and there was nothing that was at all harassing or belittling other than simply invoking their name, which I don't think, last time I checked, is against the law. Again, this doesn't sound like someone who wants to have an honest and open conversation. Also, this doesn't sound like someone who is confident in their position, whose arguments are sound. This person, unfortunately, is emblematic of the culture we are currently in. This person, unfortunately, by their own admission, is weak, is wimpy, and is whack. But they are always welcome on this show to have an honest and open discussion with your holy host. When we return, we'll be joined by Deborah Pauly with the Lex Rex Institute, and we'll continue our discussion about religion and politics here on your hometown station. We're back here live on Politics in the Pulpit. This is your holy host, the Bishop of Santa Clarita, Pastor Jerry Cook, and we are pleased to welcome back on our program Deborah Pauly, who brings witticism, even some effervescent personality, the Deborah Pauly, back here on the program. Deborah, say hello.
Hello, Pastor Cook. I'm glad to be back with you. Here we are in the middle of the month. I'm not used to that.
Well, the last time we were supposed to be on, or scheduled to be on, our friend Alexander was able to come on from Lex Rex Institute, and we found out that he was going to get married and is now currently enjoying his honeymoon.
He is, and I was at the wedding. It was a beautiful wedding there on the Queen Mary in Long Beach, and it was just very, very meaningful. It was a beautiful. I think they're going to have a lovely, lovely marriage that will last a long, long time, and that's saying something in California in the year 2023.
Well, I wish them many, many happy years, and as many years, of course, as I've been married. People think that 24 years of marriage for me is a long time, but I guess for a Baptist preacher, that's a long time.
I don't know. It's a sad state. California actually led the charge. Legal. Well, let's talk legally a little bit about that, because it's really part of the degradation of our society that they've taken marriage and turned it into a kind of a, you can just turn it back in if you don't want it. It's a give and give. You don't take it as seriously. California was actually the first state to have a no-fault divorce. So it's like, no problem, no harm, no foul. You just kind of walk away. Nobody's at fault. And that's the deal. And a lot of other states actually followed California. And it started that trend where now if a marriage lasts at all, that is the phenomenon, right?
Well,
there.
I can assure you, Deborah, that if I got a divorce, my wife would find fault. But that's another day for another topic.
There is always fault. But somebody's at fault. It takes two to tango, so they say. But, the fact that they've made it kind of one of these things that you can just toss in the trash can has really harmed society.
No.
A lot of damage is done to people, and a lot of the problems that we see in society have to do with the lack of the family. Now, I know you don't have me to talk about that, but when I really discovered just how instrumental California was with its family law, by making it so easy to just get a divorce, and how it actually trickled into the rest of our society. And they say, how goes California, so goes the nation. That is so true. And so for many people who want to leave this state, give up on this state, and a lot of people are, people who think like you and me, mostly conservatives, are packing it up, moving back to free America. As soon as we cede this land, and it is a war, and you have to think of it as a war, we cede this land, they take over this land, and then they just keep right on marching. And so we can't leave, we can't give up. That's really not our job.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100% on that, Deborah. At the beginning of the show here, I was talking a little bit about tonight here in Santa Clarita. We're going to be taking a big group over to the Hart School Board, and we're going to try to influence our school board to change a policy about parental notification. I'm sure you're very, very familiar with stuff like that, especially considering how school boards have been really the topic of conversation for the last couple of years, specifically post-COVID. But what I have found, though, Deborah, is that it is very hard to have a reasonable conversation about social and political issues with those who identify as progressive and very hard left. Is my observation only unique to me, or is that something that Deborah Pauly would say, yeah, that seems to be across the board?
I think not just Deborah Pauly, but almost anyone who's attempted to have that kind of a conversation. It used to be that in this country, we would debate openly. We would do it with great gusto. We cared about beating up the issues so that we would come to the best conclusion. Somewhere along the line, we lost that ability to do that. It has to do with the group think that has infected the Democrat Party, which is now so far left, it doesn't look anything like the Democrat Party of the 50s and 60s or even 70s. It's actually socialist, it's Democrat, it's communist, it's this progressivism, and they make it sound good. Progressing toward what exactly? You cannot have a political discourse. This is a story, a true story. I'm going to tell you this because I was sitting around behind a school district headquarters here in Orange County with a group of women. Most of them were left-leaning, but we were all in the legislative coalition, and I, at the time, was chairwoman of that legislative coalition. And I looked to the one woman who was the most vocal liberal in the group, who was constantly she had hate just spewing out of her entire soul, and the daggers coming out of the eyes at any thought that was kind, hopeful, godly, if you will, a thought process. And I said, it's important for us to be able to have, this political discourse. And she looked at me with all sincerity, meaning it completely. It's like, discourse, mind your language. We don't need to talk like that here. Honestly, she did not even understand what the word discourse meant in the political context of being able to have a full and robust conversation. You cannot have it because they're not about independent thinking or critical thinking. They're about group thinking, and they're about a lot of emotion. Passion is one thing. Emotion is another. It's all emotion driven. And their leaders and their speakers are all talking nonsense, but they do it with such conviction. Even I think, oh my God, they really believe in that. But they're saying absolutely nothing. The difference between the left and the right, Democrat, Republican, if you want to call it that, sometimes I don't know that that's even accurate in today's, vernacular in society. But what ends up happening with the right is that we are filled with independent thinkers, critical thinkers. And so you don't move that entire group in one direction all at the same time in the same way, because we think differently and we allow for that independent thought. Not only that, we encourage it, we respect it. It is necessary to have a society that's functioning well. You can't have everybody thinking exactly the same way, parroting exactly the same language. If you look at the liberal media, they will have their talking points du jour, and they are literally saying exactly the same phrases from one station to the next station to the next station to the next station, and that is how they are, modifying the thought processes of our young people too. And the schools is where they target it. Of course, they target the schools. If you can get a hold of the children's minds, and you will take control of the entire government within a generation. And that's so true.
You know, the great Rush Limbaugh, he left us much too early a couple of years ago, dying of fourth stage cancer. He used to have a rough cut every Monday of the talking heads over the weekend, and how all of the liberal talking points were all essentially the same talking points, depending on the. It didn't matter what the talking head was, whether it was Meet the Press or whether it was, Face the Nation. They all had their talking points that went out that weekend, and they all just went out like lemmings and repeated them. And it was just great to hear that rough cut every Monday.
Yes, I actually, of course, I'm a fan of Rush Limbaugh, and he was great, a great orator, and just great research. Everything was just so spot on, and he really did help our cause, because it's refreshing to be able to listen to someone like that on the radio when the rest of the media is saying just as you just explained, the same thing over and over and over again. You're thinking, but I don't think that way, and that doesn't make sense to me. Am I the only one? No, you're not the only one. And that's why radio shows like yours are so important, and there are many of them that have popped up. And those most local stations and those most local actions that you're preparing to take are the ones that are most critical. I say it all the time. You have to stay and play in your own backyard. That's where the rubber meets the road. Yes, connect to the larger, more federal, dynamic. Yes, but don't think that that's where you need to play. You can affect the greater changes right there in your own backyard. And if everyone is doing that, we can actually be successful.
Well, talking about our own backyard, about a week ago, I used to think that Ohio might have been conservative backyard. But Ohio, of course, became the seventh state, if I'm not mistaken, to basically enshrine in their state constitution the right to have an abortion, and that's all the way up to the 9th month. What are your thoughts about Ohio making that choice and being the seventh state now to do so? We would expect that from California, from Vermont, but a state like Ohio, of course, Kansas did it not too long ago as well. Why do you think that the Republican Party is not winning on that issue, or is the Republican Party just not up front on that issue as they should be, and are they really acquiescing that argument to the left?
I don't know whether, the Republican Party, which part of the Republican Party, because there's more than one part of the party right now. I mean, we're party divided. I mean, there are those that are, you would call them the Christian right wing, I suppose, the silent majority that is becoming less and less silent all the time. They are adhering, of course, very strongly to the fact that we value life, liberty, and property. Life, liberty, and property. That's what our Constitution talks about. If you're taking life before it ever even gets the chance to start, you're certainly not valuing the principles upon which our nation has been founded. So I actually grew up in Ohio. That's a stomping ground for me. And when I read that, it actually made me very sad. It made me very sad. When the Supreme Court case came down that overturned Roe v. Wade, of course, the liberals went apoplectic, saying that, they've taken away our right to have an abortion. That's not what happened at all. It put it where it squarely should be, and that was within the state's purview. That's where those sorts of decisions I've always intended to be made by our founders, our nation's founders. That split between, whether or not the state has the authority or the federal government has authority. And if it's not enumerated in the Constitution, then those duties and authorities fall to the state. The fact that so many states, we're nearing, you said 7 now, that's the 7th state.
Yeah.
That's really, it's sad to me, because 9 months, that's a fully formed human being. And to think that, we know, we've read about it, we've seen videos about it, we see documentaries about it, that abortion doctors actually killing babies that come out of the womb alive, even though they were intended to be aborted, and they'll nip their neck and kill them. A lot. Yeah. That's child sacrifice. And that's the kind of thing that you read about in Old Testament times, right?
Yeah.
I think it's not happening here, but it is happening here. And that's how I view that. We do need to continue taking bold stands. There are many that do and have. The Republican Party is in such a state of disarray that it can't take a bold stand on anything. Although I think we've had some pretty. Do we even talk about what happened with the overthrowing of Kevin McCarthy and bringing in? Did we ever have a chance to talk about that?
You and I didn't. I know that me and Alexander did, and of course I had Congressman Mike Garcia call in at the same time to talk a little bit about about Mike Johnson and just what a great guy he is. And by the way, spoke very clearly and boldly yesterday at the March for Israel rally there at there in the Washington D.C.
This is the kind of bold leadership that we've been hungering for a long time. I hold no animosity toward Kevin McCarthy, but he's not going to do what needs to be done. When you've been around long enough, you've watched our country go through periods of great turmoil. This is the worst I think it's ever been in my lifetime, but I think every generation thinks it's the worst. And I feel bad for our young people right now that have never really lived in a time of normalcy and peace. I'm talking about the past 10 or 15 years. We just haven't really had that at all. But the pendulum swings. It swings right, and then when it goes too far right, it pulls back left, and it swings left. And the pendulum swings back and forth. Economics do the same thing. This is kind of a normal progression. But we're to the point right now where the pendulum has swung so far left, and there's no pullback right. You kind of laid that out there. You spoke about that. The Republican Party is not doing its job, which is to be the faithful opposition, and to pull it back, pull it hard right back, just to have a normalized course correction where our nation is actually in the center once again. And center, in my mind, means that it abides by the Constitution as it was written and as we understand the black letter law, and as we understand the basic definition of words is contained in the dictionary.
Yeah.
They make up new words all the time or new meanings for what those words are, but we have to swing back to the beginning. The thing, just one of the things that I really liked when Speaker Johnson took the gavel, he made some very unifying yet firmly conservative opening remarks, and I watched those. It was 18 minutes, and he outlined what I have started calling the Mike Manifesto, and it really bears some resemblance to CPOC. That's an organization that I run. But the core tenets, but what it really is the actual principles that the Republican Party professes to adhere to. And so the Mike Manifesto did 7. 7 is the number of perfection, right? Individual freedom, limited government, rule of law, peace through strength, fiscal responsibility, the free market, and human dignity. And human dignity would have to do with preserving the lives of our unborn. But I thought that was, he didn't say them exactly like that, but as he was speaking through them, I was writing down, what is it that he's talking about? What are his core principles? And those are exciting core principles, and I look forward to seeing where he takes us. And I think he's doing a pretty good job so far. In the Scripture, I know you know Scripture better than I do, I'm sure of it, but it says that when a man is right with the Lord, it causes even his enemies to be at peace with him.
Yeah.
And I think that, he's got that gravitas, and he's got that inner spirit that is causing others they have nothing to do but say, can't fight him. He's going to win. And he is going to win.
Indeed. Well, we're talking to Deborah Pauly with Lex Rex Institute. We'll continue our conversation just after the break here. We'll talk a little bit about a positive development here, at least for the former president, in terms of a Michigan ballot after the judge rejects their 14th Amendment challenge for eligibility. We'll ask Deborah about that on the other side of the break here on your hometown station. Here on the final segment for Politics in the Pulpit on your hometown station, we are talking with Deborah Pauly with the Lex Rex Institute. Deborah, besides doing things with Lex Rex, what else do you do? What other things does Deborah Pauly like to do? Fill us in.
Well, I run an organization called the Conservative Patriots of Orange County. I'm the president of that. It's a 527 political not-for-profit. We do a lot of activism And that's why I was so appreciative of what you were discussing about going to the school board meetings. We have an education committee, an election integrity committee, a reform the central committee, because the Republican central committees need reformed in many of our counties, not all of them. But like I said, we stay and play in our own backyards. It's all Orange County centric. We have a legal action committee. And we just started that, and we are now getting ready to launch our youth patriots committee, where we are bringing in our young people and beginning to mentor them, 18 to 25 years of age. And so we bring in candidates before us. We vet them. We go to our boards of supervisors meetings, our boards of education, both at county level and local levels. We go to support one another, and we go to speak truth to power and give support to the conservatives that are sitting there, because often, I know, because I was an elected official, I was on the Villa Park City Council, the only people you hear from are the crazies, the left, and they come in ranting and raving, and they make no sense, but the normal people are at home watching it on TV. And it is so refreshing when they decide to show up together and speak out, because it gives you confidence and courage to know that you are not acting alone, that people are paying attention. So I hope you have a lot of success tonight at your local school board meeting, because I know that matters to the conservatives that are sitting there. And it also puts a little fear in the liberals, and it needs to.
Well, I appreciate that, and Lord willing, we do have some success tonight, and then ongoing success as it continues. Obviously, the fight does not stop tonight. But real quickly, Deborah, in the last minute and a half with you, just comment briefly on this Michigan case where there has been this effort with a few states now, I think 3 of them, trying to keep Trump off the ballot. I asked Alexander about this a couple weeks ago. He just literally laughed on air and said this is just not going to work. And just yesterday, this judge from Michigan said, we reject this. You cannot challenge the eligibility, and the president is going to be on the ballot. What say you?
Well, it is pretty laughable. It is an act of great desperation by the left, and it's happening in several states, as you mentioned. I consider it the kabuki theater of the left for the ignorant, because there are many people who go, oh, wow, they're going to keep him off the ballot. He must have done something really wrong, and they're buying into this. So it's not really done to try to actually adjudicate anything. It's done to try to dirty him up. We've talked about that phrase before.
Sure.
In politics, dirty that person up, trying to make him look like he's done something so bad, seditious, or he's a seditionist or an insurrectionist. But as Alexander probably pointed out, the reason that they're tossing these things is because it's not even right for adjudication. There has to be an active case or controversy before a court is going to take something on ripeness, or the ripeness doctrine concerns the timing of judicial intervention. And it really prevents the courts from entangling themselves in abstract disagreements before by adjudicating something too soon. But before there even is, he's on the ballot. You can't prevent him from being on the November ballot. They're not even talking about the primary ballot. They're talking about the general election ballot. Well, we don't even know if he's going to be on it. So how can you possibly bring that before any court anywhere in the nation?
It's almost like they realize it's a fait accompli that he's going to be on that November ballot.
I hope that's right. I hope that's true. I hope that it is.
Deborah Pauly, if folks want to follow you or find out more about you, where would they go, Deborah?
Well, you can go to the Conservative Patriots of OC.org. That's the website for our organization. I have a Pauly's Perspective that I publish fairly often. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. I don't hide my name. I am who I am. It's easy to find me. I don't make it hard to find me.
Deborah, it is always a pleasure having you here on Politics in the Pulpit. And Lord willing, we will one day see each other face to face. That may be a pleasure for me, but not so much for you.
I'm looking forward to it. I really am. Have a great rest of the day.
And by the way, happy Thanksgiving to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Well, let me just finish out our program today by just encouraging you one last time, especially if you're listening to head to the board meeting tonight. It'll be not at the normal location behind the Walmart. For those of you in the know here in the Santa Cruz Valley, it's actually going to be at the Hart High Auditorium. And again, if you are coming to be a body, I would encourage you to do that, but I would also encourage you to speak up, to say something. The other side is very engaged and is very enraged and is going to have a lot of speakers. And you're going to notice that they're going to say some things. They're going to be throwing a bunch of bombs at some of the board members and even some that are seated in the sanctuary as well. But I just encourage you, if you're going to come, you need to make it clear. You need to be on point. You need to be respectful. You need to be brief, but you need to be there early too. This thing starts at 7, but I'm encouraging you to get there around 5:30, and just start assembling, if you will, fellowshipping and shucking and jiving with the friends that you have there. Maybe go out to dinner a little bit early and then head there. And this is going to be a long evening, folks. So I would encourage you to sit it out for the long haul. And this is not the last meeting. Don't think that if you're there tonight that this is a fait accompli. This is not. We're probably going to have to do this several more times. And so I would encourage you not to let the process bog you down. And so please be there tonight. This is